What's up, everybody, and welcome back to G Show Spotlight. It's Monday, so we do spotlights, and I am G1, and I am here with G95. What's up, brother?
Nothing much. Happy to be here.
That's good. Good to have you back. Of course, a brand new week, and that means more fun stuff to podcast about. And today, being its spotlight, we will be talking about one of my favorite horror movies, well, two, I should say, horror movies of all time. We're going to talk about an original one and then the remake. And we're talking about Night of the Living Dead. So, let's get into it because it's one of my favorite topics of discussion. I'm going to start with you, G95. Night of the Living Dead. How old were you when you saw the original? And how old were you when you saw the remake? And in what order did you watch those movies?
Um, Fuck, dude, I don't even know. I didn't see Night of the Living Dead until I was probably about maybe 10 or 11. I'm 21 now, so it's, but I'd known of it because my dad was a huge fan of it. Um, Actually, he's the one who kind of helped get me into horror movies a bit. Like, he would always tell me about um, Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead and stuff, and we'd go over to his brother's, my uncle's house, and I'd see the VHS tapes for Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead and stuff. And one day he just kind of like, hey, you can have these. I wasn't old enough to watch them, but I could have them, and I knew like someday I'll be old enough to watch these and enjoy them because my dad told me all about them.
Right.
He told me all about the original, the Tom Savini one, which we're going to get to, and Return of the Living Dead. So those three movies are very special to me. And he also introduced me to the Universal classic movies like Frankenstein and Dracula and all that. So that kind of helped me get on a path to loving horror movies and really appreciating them from a really early age. And then I didn't see the remake, Tom Savini's one, until I was in middle school, I think. I'd known of Tom Savini. I was a big horror movie fan. George Romero was like my guy at the time. Um, and I knew Tom Savini directed the remake, and George Romero wrote it, and I was all about that shit when I saw it. I haven't watched it in a while, but that is such a good movie.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies ever. I mean, I have my all-time favorites.
Mm-hmm.
That's up there. I'll put it like this: there are movies that I sit down and I watch whenever I see them on TV. Oh shit, this is on! I just sit down and I watch it. If- Without commercials though, like if it's on like a cable channel without commercials. Avengers, um, Flash Gordon, of the 1980 Flash Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
Night of the Living Dead. If that movie's on, man, I sit down, I just sit there, I watch. I don't care what I'm doing. Um, so yeah, that's one of my favorites. But go ahead. I'm sorry, I jumped in, broke your train of thought.
Yeah, I was just saying, the original and Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead, and the remake of Night of the Living Dead have a lot of significance to me. 'Cause my dad's he passed away when I was 9, so those movies, and I didn't get a chance to watch those before, like with him or anything. So those, growing up and watching those on my own, and just they brought back a lot of good memories of him telling me all about these movies, and I don't know, they have sentimental value.
Right. Now I hear that, man. Sorry about that, about your pops. Uh, it's cool though when you have somebody like that in your life saying, "Look, these are the movies you're gonna want to watch," and
Mm-hmm.
the genuine love behind it. Uh, I don't know. My pops, I don't think he. Yeah, I didn't watch any horror. I'm lying. He did take us to go see Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master, in the theaters. That was pretty fun. That was pretty cool. But as far as like Night of the Living Dead is concerned, I remember the first time because I used to be deathly afraid of zombies. Honestly, Return of the Living Dead Part 2 would come on all the time on back east when I was younger. It was WPIX channel 11, and they used to do like the movies of the night, and it'd be uh, Flash Gordon, it'd be The Last Dragon, it'd be Rocky IV, and it'd be Return of the Living Dead Part 2. I'd watch 3 out of those 4 movies because Return of the Living Dead Part 2, when they would show the commercials, the zombies just freaked me out. I was always afraid of zombies. I think that might have to do with Michael Jackson's Thriller. I'm not sure, but I knew I was afraid. And then one day, and I'll never forget this, it was on Halloween. And I think I probably was 10 at the time. VH1 played the original 1960-something Night of the Living Dead. And I had caught it right from like the beginning. So I said, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to watch this movie. Because the zombies didn't look scary, right? Of course. They didn't have the makeup effects. They didn't have... It was a very low budget. It's like shoestring budget. But that movie changed like everything. When I sat there and I watched it, I was blown away. I'm 10 years old. I'll never forget this. Because after they showed that, then they showed Night of the Living Bread, which I thought was equally fantastic. I don't know if you ever saw Night of the Living Bread. It's like slices of white bread just flying around. It was hysterics. But yeah, that was my first exposure to that movie, and I was just blown away by it. And then it was like through Fangoria or Starlog magazines. My uncle had a ton of those old school magazines. I'd seen Dawn of the Dead, and that's how I knew who Tom Savini was, like the special effects guy on it. And it was like 93 or 94, around that time. My brother was sick, and my brother wanted to pass, and my young brother. I used to stay with my cousin a lot, and my cousin worked in a video store. So being he worked in a video store, we had access to everything. And one of those things, I said, "Hey, let's get Night of the Living Dead." He was like, "All right, we'll get that, but you got to watch Dawn of the Dead." Fuck it, I'm with it, and blew me away. So like Night and Dawn, those 2 movies were just, I loved them to death. And like you, they hold a special place in my heart. When I saw the Tom Savini remake, because now I wasn't afraid of zombies anymore, I manned up and grabbed my sack and said, I'm going to watch Return of the Living Dead Part 2. And I loved it. It was hysterical. I think I did watch Return of the Living Dead Part 1 first, which is one of the greatest movies, like zombie movies ever. That's like top 3.
It might be my all-time favorite zombie movie, just because it combines, it's got the horror aspect. It's got, I'm a big metal and punk rock guy, so it's got that. Yeah. It's got the comedy. It's perfect.
It's a perfect blend of everything.
It's written and directed by the guy who wrote fucking Alien.
Yup, Dan O'Bannon.
Yeah, man.
I love that movie. I cannot ever shit on that movie. It's literally like top. The argument can be made any given day. It's number 1. So, but when I finally got around to watching Tom Savini's Night of the Living Dead, for me that was like, and it's crazy saying it like this, but this is for me, like my personal feelings on it. It was like a game changer. When it starts off and it's like the moon coming above the trees, like through the trees, and then just Night of the Living Dead on the side, like that title card, I was instantly sucked in. I loved it. And then the weird kooky music in the beginning, it's like, it just fit. It was like, yes, like the music is eerie. It's eerie yet kooky. Like literally, that's like the only word I can think of. Kooky. If you go back and you listen to that in the beginning when Barbara is driving with her brother Johnny, the music playing is so funny. Well, not funny, but it sets a mood. And I mean, honestly, I think that's like one of the best modern. Well, I can't say modern, but one of the best remakes I've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, yeah, seriously, I love that.
Because it stayed true to the original and went in tone and spirit, but went off differently in the right directions. Like Barbara didn't become catatonic; she became a badass at the end. She was. I feel like that movie doesn't get the appreciation it deserves.
I agree.
I feel like it's kind of been forgotten about a little bit, but you watch it and it doesn't look like a movie that was made in 1990. This movie looks like a movie that could have come out at any given point in time. It could have come out in the 70s, could have 80s, 90s. It could come out today, and it would hold up just fine.
I agree.
That's the way it's, and this cast is fantastic. Tony Todd,
Yes.
Candyman as Ben, Patricia Arquette, Tom Tolles, who's no longer with us, and he's fantastic in there. Bill Moseley, Otis from House of 1,000 Corpses and Devil's Rejects, and fucking Chop Top from Texas Chainsaw Part 2. Johnny, it's fantastic.
Yeah, and the cast. For me, it's Tony Todd or bust. He's the one, it's Tony fucking Todd to stand out. Yeah. And I've always liked Ben in the original. I've always.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one. He had to be that rock. I mean, when he starts slapping Barbara in the original one, because she's, like you said, catatonic. She's just lost. And you can see, like you said, when you compare the two, the original is very much a product of its time.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with the remake, it's a product of any time, it feels like.
Yeah.
And when it was made, I mean, think about it. Barbara was that character arc, her progression in that movie. You get to see her from being just like this quiet, it looks like a quiet school teacher, maybe, to Sarah Connor. And at that time, let's see, you had Sarah Connors and you had your Ellen Ripley's running amok, showing strong female action stars. And I think that was handled well, very well, to see that she wasn't afraid. She knew the situation. She took control of the situation in her own way. And I love that. But
I think it really is a credit to, I mean, it came together in such a good way. George Romero obviously wrote the script, and I believe he produced it too. And Tom Savini obviously being so closely related to George Romero on a professional level, and I think obviously they are good friends. He was the perfect person to do this. My only criticism, and I know we've talked about this before to some degree, is Tom Savini, the master of gore at his at his peak, is directing a zombie movie, and it's essentially a bloodless film. That's the only problem. Like, I'm not some big gore guy. I don't go out of my way to watch over the top, really gory movies just because they're bloody and stuff. But
go ahead, give a couple examples of big. Oh no, go ahead. No, go ahead. You're just trying to.
No, but when it fits the movie that it's bloodless. But I would have. This is one of the only things Tom Savini has ever really directed, save for a few episodes of Tales from the Dark Side, and that was a TV show in the 80s, so there was obviously can't get too crazy with that, but I would have liked to one of his only directorial efforts. I would have liked to see him go crazy with the blood, I guess. I mean, I'm like I mentioned, it what we got fits the movie. I'm not saying it would have been a better movie if there was blood, but the fact that Tom Savini is directing a movie, special effects master and, master of blood, basically, is directing a horror movie, I feel like we should have got a little bit more bloody.
Well, let me ask you this question then. Do you think that maybe, because this is just my personal opinion on it, like you said, he did direct a couple of episodes of Tales from the Dark Side TV show. Maybe he was filming this movie kind of like an episode like that, and he knew the restraints, and maybe got to him. Because here's the thing, we know, like you said, we know he's the master of his craft, and not being a director, but being a special effects guy. We got it in Dawn of the Dead. We got it in Day of the Dead in spades, buckets of blood, guts, eyes, pus. You see. When that was all his work in Dawn of the Dead, when the zombies start ripping him apart and his intestines are falling out, and Day of the Dead is perfect example. They go even further the zombie rolls over on the table, his guts fall out.
Mhm.
When zombies bite people in those movies, neck bites especially, you see the skin pulling, the blood bursting. I totally get that, but he's following this blueprint, if you will, of George Romero's classic movie, and there's really not that much blood there either. So, I'm sure you've seen the additions where uh, he shoots the zombie, and the zombie's head explodes. He had that, and then they told him to take it out of the movie,
Mhm.
and things to that effect. You think that maybe he was trying to emulate the original more, so that's why he kind of kept it reined in with the gore and the blood and all that stuff? Because we know he could do it. We've seen it in Dawn and Day of the Dead, and that was him.
I don't think it's because he'd already done it and he didn't want to retread on past work. I think it within the confines of the story, the gore wasn't necessarily necessary, really.
Right.
That's I think the only reason, or budget constraints too, because it's obviously the first night of the zombie apocalypse, so there's not a lot of whole like elaborate zombie makeup. There's no like skeletons showing through or anything like that. But I do think it was a fairly low budget production. But I think, like you said, he maybe was trying to channel the spirit of the original movie. I guess my complaint is, why doesn't Tom Savini direct more? I guess he's proven he can do it, very well, and I guess I'd like to see him go a little bit crazy with a more bloody movie.
Yeah, I hear you.
I guess maybe that's, I'm not knocking the movie by any means, but I'm, when like the episodes of Walking Dead that Greg Nicotero direct, those are usually pretty over the top, either with the drama or the special effects. And he was trained by Tom Savini, and he's a master in his own right. Probably I would consider him the master of special effects. I guess I would like to see something a little bit more like that, in a way. Something, no holding back, I guess.
Right. I totally get what you're saying. It really never dawned on me about the gore part, because what I was looking at the most with Tom Savini's movie was the looks of the zombies. He really, and like you said, it's the first night, so you really can't go and do a deteriorated zombie.
Yeah.
But the first zombie you meet, what was the? Yeah, no, he had like a zombified face. Like if he just crawled out of the ground, it looked kind of like one of the zombies from like Return of the Living Dead Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because Return of the Living Dead Part 2, the zombies were like way different from the zombies in Return of the Living Dead Part 1.
Yeah.
Way different. So that first zombie that attacked in Tom Savini's, he had kind of a Return of the Living Dead 2 flavor. Then you had the autopsy corpse, which was another cool effect. The whiteout eyes was one of my favorite things for zombie. When you see like the milky eyed, he did that. What else? There's a couple of really cool zombies in that movie. Uncle, what was his name? Uncle, is it Uncle Jesse? No.
It might be.
Right?
I don't remember. It's been a while since I've watched it.
It's been a minute too. So, but he was another cool zombie effect.
I'm not saying there's bad special effects, but
right. But I think what I'm saying is I think he was probably working more with that, crafting the looks, than trying to figure out how to make them explode or have the gut fest that we'd be used to.
I think if that movie did come out now, as timeless feeling as it is, I do think that it would be a lot more over the top if it came out today.
Well, there was but
I never really noticed the lack of blood until someone else pointed it out to me. And I'm like, oh yeah, that was a pretty goreless movie. It's not a problem to me at all. But somebody had to point it out to me, as I'm sure you hadn't really thought about it too much before I pointed it out.
Right.
Because it's not something that's making the movie lack anything.
Right.
The movie doesn't suffer because there's not gore. But it's just an interesting little way of looking at it.
No, I hear you. I definitely hear you. There was a Night of the Living Dead movie that came out recently, and I forget the names. I think they had a subtitle, and I think it started with an M or something. Mitosis.
I think we're thinking of two different movies.
Oh, all right. Which one are you thinking of?
I'm thinking of the one from 2008. It was Night of the Living Dead 3D with Sid Haig.
I remember that. Yeah, I didn't finish that one.
Bad.
Yeah, I couldn't finish that.
Good.
Yeah, I owned that, and it came with a little 3D. I bought it because it was Night of the Living Dead, and I was such a fan. And then say, hey, so he's a funny. I like him.
Yeah, he's great, but I mean,
I think I might have given that to G2. I'm not sure if I gave it to him or his brother, or it's somewhere still in a box that I've never opened up since I've been here, like the box of other stuff. So, but I did own that. I bought that. I owned it. It came with 3D, old school 3D cardboard glasses, the blue and the red lens. Yeah, that was cool. But yeah, I don't remember finishing that. There was another one that came out recently though, not too recently, but I believe I saw it while I was here already. So I've been here for 3 years now. But it was kind of like somebody set up this elaborate prank, almost, if you will, and where there was zombies at this barn party, but they were human with metal teeth. It was weird. It was like they had like metal chompers, and they were biting people and to rip. They weren't really zombies. It was such a weird take on Night of the Living Dead that I did enjoy it, but it was one of those movies that I was like, I have to watch this movie like 5 more times to like grasp it, because it was low budget. It was definitely, it was not one of those things coming out like the blockbuster of the year or whatever. It was so under the radar. I think I might have seen. I think I might have seen that like in a Fangoria book or something. I used to get a Fangoria magazine, and in the back they used to have like upcoming movies, and I think that's where I saw that. If not from there, then from like Ain't It Cool News, they had a horror spot. But I was like, what is going on? It's good. It's deserving of a watch.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it doesn't hold up to any of the other ones, but yeah. So let's go back to the original Night of the Living Dead. I mean, this is George Romero's. This was his directorial debut, right?
I think he'd done like some TV stuff before that, but this might be his first like real movie.
Now, what's funny about that movie? It's that it scared the shit out of people.
Yeah.
It literally did. The social commentary could be one thing. I mean, I don't want to get too, I don't want to dig myself into this type of hole, but I mean, your lead was a black man in that time. So, there's very tense race relations during that time. And Romero was like, no, fuck it. He's going to be the lead. He's the man. Put everybody in this situation. But it scared people, and I'm sitting here and I say to myself, I love this movie, but what was so scary? If I'm not mistaken, I read reports people were like throwing up in the theater. From what? Like, because it's not gory. There's no real jump scares, So it's like, what could have made people react to this movie that way? From the horror, to make them scared, the horror element of it. What do you think it was
Well, I do think that a lot of the like social commentary, I believe that George Romero said that in that specific one, in Night of the Living Dead, most of the social commentary was unintentional
Okay.
and just happened to be more or less a product of its time. All the other ones, Dawn of the Dead is obviously social commentary on consumerism and all that, and then Land of the Dead is like a social commentary on what was going on with the Bush administration and like classism and stuff like that.
Yes.
But this one I think was mostly unintentional. And as for the scare aspect, like what was so scary about it, I think it was just like you said before, it was just a game changer. There'd been zombie movies or ghoul movies.
Cool movies,
But
yeah.
this is the first time you really see them devouring flesh. There's that scene after the gas tank explodes. The zombies are tearing away at flesh, and that's like actual raw liver and stuff they were eating. They're chomping on bugs, and it was just so. This was 1968. A lot of movies had been colorized by that point,
Right.
or were coming out in color, and this was dirty and gritty and low budget and black and white, and I think that added to it. And I think it was just such a tense situation. I think having a black man as the lead with I don't remember his character's name or the actor's name, the balding guy, the father who was,
Right.
he wanted to stay in the basement.
Yeah. Cooper.
Cooper, yes. There was obvious tension between them, and I think that all of that accumulated and added to this movie to make it, with the race relations going on at the time and stuff, it really did make it much more tense and a much more like visceral kind of experience at the time.
Yeah. Um, and I think that's probably that definitely has to be it then for me, because I was always like, why is it? But again, we growing up in a different time, so it's the norm. Your neighbors,
Yeah.
Or especially where I grew up, in New York, it's multicultural. So we weren't around obviously when that came out, and to understand until you grow up and you realize, wow, it was bad. Why was it scary? See, like the horror aspect, and this is why I think I love zombies so much more than any other creature per se, is it's the idea of your grandmother knock on the door. Don't open the door. Your grandma's been dead for a long time, but you love your grandmother. You want to give your grandmother a hug, and your grandmother going to eat your brain. It's things like that. That's scary. The idea of that. This was someone I loved, and now they're trying to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no reasoning with it. It's
Yeah,
not going to stop.
I feel like it's so visceral, especially Night of the Living Dead, with the daughter getting bitten and dying, and then that today is still a little bit like when I watch it, it's like, wow, I can't believe they got away with that. Then, you see the trowel coming down in shadow, and the daughter is just the zombified daughter is just stabbing her mother to death, and the mother is like, why the fuck is my daughter killing me? Or when, the zombies do finally break into the house and Barbara's just kind of standing there and you see Johnny kind of walk through the door, his gloved hand kind of grabs on the door frame or the door frame, and you see this look on his face, he's dead and he's back. I think that had to have added to it at the time. This is something brand new to the world, more or less.
Right. This isn't voodoo zombies.
It really was. Definitely had to do with the race relations at the time and just the overall tension of where things were, like where we were as a culture, as a country. I think there's a famous story that George Romero has told a few times. Like they'd finished editing it and they'd literally thrown it in the trunk of a car to drive to New York to try to see if anybody would screen it. And as they were driving, they turned on the radio, and right after finishing editing this movie, they got the word that Martin Luther King had been killed.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez. And here he is bringing us a Living Dead film to screen.
Yeah.
That's wow. Man, the stories back in the day, man. That's some real cool stuff. I would love to talk to George Romero personally. Like, just so where was your head at when you were making the original 3? I like Land of the Dead personally. I think it's a fun zombie romp.
Yeah, it's a decent movie.
It's the other 2 he did that I'm kind of like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because he still had, like, I think it was before Dawn or after Dawn when he did the Crazies, and I enjoyed the shit out of his Crazies. Like, I thought it was so different. Like, yeah, technically it was almost zombie-ish, but it was just, it was cool to see that too. I like, he did Monkey Shines too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he did.
I haven't seen that in a long time.
I never really liked his version of the Crazies. I liked the remake a lot.
Oh, I liked the remake a lot too, yeah.
But the original movie, I watched it a long time ago, and maybe I'd feel different now, but I thought it was just so boring.
Really?
It didn't really grab me, but what movie of his that did just fucking grab me was his vampire movie, Martin. You ever see that?
What's it called?
Martin.
No, I've never seen that.
That movie is fantastic. It's possibly my favorite thing. I've only seen it once or twice, and it might be my favorite thing he's ever done.
Wow.
It's about a guy who's convinced he's a vampire, and I think it's either his father or his uncle or something like that is like a pastor, and just convinced his son or relative or whatever it was is just like evil or mentally ill, and it's just kind of a back and forth between them, and it's really good.
Wow. All right, I'm gonna check that one out then. I gotta check it out because it's deserved. This is George Romero. I can't call myself a fan if I don't see that.
Yeah, it's great.
Now let's see. It's kind of crazy. We talk about how the theater reaction was, the audience reaction was to the original, whereas when the remake came out, I don't honestly even know I don't remember if it got a theatrical release. I mean, I guess it should have back in those days.
It did.
Yeah, it would have had to. But back in those days, it's not like today where when a movie comes out, it's big, it's in your face, everything is boom, 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 boom. You had your movies here and there. I mean, what was it? 91, I think? 92? Or 90, I think.
90. Yeah.
90. You had your action movies, so you had your Stallones, you had your Schwarzenegger still around. Jurassic Park's in the works. So you have those movies. You still have horror movies. It's 90, so you're going to have your Freddy Kruegers. I'm sure there's still Jason going on. I'm sure there was Halloween's. So Night of the Living Dead is kind of like, we haven't seen the zombies done in a while. Here we go again. But it didn't take off. It wasn't a big hit. It wasn't successful. At least I don't think so. But cult classic, absolutely. It definitely wouldn't have gotten the same response in the theater than the originals. I guess what I'm trying to get at. We are used to seeing. We're used to seeing strong female type characters now.
Yeah, at this point we're used to like black leads. And
black
all
leads,
that.
right? And Tony Todd, of course. Again, he's in the movie.
But this was pre Candyman.
I know it was pre Candyman, but I think Tony Todd, the dude, he was in other things. It wasn't just I mean, Candyman probably made him the horror icon, but he was recognized in the community. Is what I'm saying. He had to be. People probably knew who he was, but still phenomenal actor is what I mean. His portrayal of Ben, taking nothing away from the original. He played it strong. He played it because I watched that movie a lot. So I'm like, when I watch him, he comes off so convincing. The story of him in the diner, the truck spilling over and all the zombies coming and eating people, and then one guy put it, he's got the stick, you gotta get him in the head. Like those little moments like that with him, Barbara's just like, I guess when she's getting like there's so much, man. I'm gushing. Let me stop for a minute. Let me collect my thoughts. I'm sorry. I want to watch this movie right now.
Yeah, I'm feeling it too.
Like I really do. Let me ask you a question. Do you think if this movie was successful, let's just say it was successful, it made decent box office, and it reignited a spark for zombie movies per se, do you think the studio would have said, you know what, that did really well, and Dawn of the Dead is one of those beloved movies of that genre, and it's true, it has a following. Do you think they would have greenlit a Dawn of the Dead sequel? I'm not a sequel, a remake?
I don't think so.
No? You think?
This was 1990. This is pre-remake craze that we saw in like 2005. You know, zombie movies didn't really ever die off. You know, this was like around the death of the slasher movie. You know, this is when things were. The 1990s were a weird time for horror movies. We had strange stuff like Mimic and just
creature features.
Sort of. It was a weird time for horror movies, but you know zombie movies I feel like is a thing that'll never really die.
Well, I mean, there was a huge gap. In between. You get your zombie movies from Italy, let's say. Italy, it was like Schlockfest. You had Zombie 2, City of the Dead, even though, like, the Zombie for me is the best one. And then after that, there's some really cool sequences.
And Zombie 2 are more or less the same thing.
Why? What?
Zombie, ZOMBIE is the American title of the movie. Zombie 2, ZOMBI, is the Italian title, because in 1978 is when Dawn of the Dead went to Italy.
Right, and it was supposed to be the sequel.
It was under the title of Zombie, with no E, just I. And so Lucio Fulci tried to play Zombie 2 or Zombie off as a spiritual sequel / predecessor to Dawn of the Dead. Try to build off the hype of that.
I'm talking. Yeah, go ahead.
And then there was a whole slew of unrelated sequels that were all either there was like Zombie 3 and 4 and 5 and stuff, but none of them were ever really like related or connected.
Well, what I meant was, because I did know that, but what I meant was like when I bought the DVDs back when I was like finding all of it, and I'm like, oh, here we go. My Zombie 2 was City of the Dead, and it was called Zombie 2: City of the Dead.
Weird. I've never seen it like that before.
No, I have. I'm gonna look for it because I have it somewhere. I don't like that movie.
I've never seen it like that before, ever.
And that's the one with that's the one when the ghost comes and she throws up her intestines.
Mm-hmm. But that's a very different zombie movie than Zombie.
I know, that's what got me confused, because like I said, the way I had it when I bought it, because I have 3 also. Mm-hmm. If I'm not mistaken, the cover for 3, they're like at an airplane terminal or something, like a runway. The cover, and there's like zombies coming down the strip. It's just really weird stuff. Like I only watched that movie one time.
Yeah, I don't even remember that scene in Zombie 3. And
I'm talking the DVD cover.
Fair, I hated the zombie sequels.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I don't consider City of the Dead or City of the Living Dead, I think it is, a zombie sequel.
I don't either. It was more ghost than zombies.
It's an unrelated movie.
Right.
But somehow you got a copy that says Zombie 2.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I bought it. That's the reason why I bought it, because it was like marketed that way, and I'm like, oh, all right, they made a sequel, because the first Zombie, I love that movie.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And the end of that movie with all the zombies on the Brooklyn Bridge is one of my favorite scenes. Like, it's just such a classic shot. So I thought City of the Dead, Zombie 2, continuation. I didn't do research. I didn't know about it like that, you know. So I just picked it up, went home, put it on, and it was not the movie I thought it was. I was like, what?
This is a good movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to rewatch that again, and I got to find it. But
I didn't remember. Well, I remember not loving it, but I was like impressed with how weird and fucked up it was. Because it was like the opening scene, a priest kills himself or something like that. That's that's crazy.
I gotta watch that again. I don't remember. All I remember hating that movie was because they weren't really like zombies. They were like ghosts. They were like poltergeist. And I was just like, what is this? This is like, where's the Brooklyn Bridge? What's going on? Again, the way it was marketed, the way I saw it, the DVD cover.
I wonder if you got like a bootleg or something.
Listen, it could have been a bootleg, or it could have been like some other like internet. You know how like with Godzilla movies they would do like international titles. It could have been something like that. Because again, I never did research on it. All I got Zombie. I knew Zombie, and I loved it.
But you'd think if it was an international release, it might not be a Region 1 disc.
I don't know. I never looked at it like that. I never. Back in those days, I was working, getting paid, going to buy crazy things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was a DVD spot that had all of that stuff. And I used to go in there and just pick them up and go home and this was way before the days of like Facebook, and we're talking about probably 98, 99, 2000 at most. So I wasn't doing,
Lucio Fulci's Zombie. You know the really big one on the boat in the beginning?
Yes.
The really big fat zombie. They actually shot that scene in New York, and this was 1979, I believe. So this was the peak of the punk rock scene. And so the actor who played that zombie went off to the famous punk venue CBGB's, which you're from New York. I'm sure you've heard of it a million times.
Yeah.
And he went there in full zombie makeup, and it was such a crazy scene at the time. Nobody looked at him twice.
That's great. That is great. That was a cool looking zombie too, man. Mm-hmm. I did love those movies, man. Zombie, not Zombie 2, City of the Living Dead.
And how can you not love the fucking scene of a zombie versus a fucking shark?
There's been nothing to top that yet.
Ever.
I don't know, Shin Godzilla, Zombie Godzilla, who knows? But no, that is true. That's one of the best. Another one, just an old school filmmaking. Like you had the dude could hold his breath for a significant amount of time. He was the trainer of the shark.
Yes.
And then it looked like he was ripping chunks off the shark. It was just amazingly done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. I actually started watching that not too long ago, but it was very late and I was very tired.
Let's be honest, it's not a great film. It's fun, but it's not a great movie.
Right. It's fun. No, matter of fact, it was around Halloween. What I did is I shut it off, and I said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna watch The Fog," because that's my Halloween movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I did. But so you don't think that there might have been a sequel, or just let's continue it?
I don't think so.
No.
It's maybe we would have gotten a sequel. Maybe, but if it had been successful or really successful, but I don't think the cast and crew would have wanted to do another one. They told their story. If they had done,
well, I'm not talking about. Yeah, I'm not talking about with. Well, here's the thing. That story actually continued in comic book format.
Did it?
Yes, it did. I don't know offhand. I want to say Avatar Press, because I think it's Avatar Press that does like all of these awesome like crazy comics with zombies and stuff. But there was a Night of the Living Dead comic that continued the events with Barbara when she left the the farmhouse, and it was with her. Continuing, the misadventures through a zombie apocalypse.
I vaguely remember hearing about this.
I think I might have an issue or two of that somewhere, because like I said, again, comics, I just buy a bunch of comics and just throw them to the side. But yeah, so they technically did a sequel. I've always liked that idea too, to continue something like that in comic book form. But what I meant was, like, instead of using the same characters, I meant like Dawn of the Dead. You know, continue the story of the zombie apocalypse. That's the character. You know, you don't need the same. You don't need Barbara. Ben was dead. Everybody else was dead. But shit, if you wanted to make a Dawn of the Dead and have her as the main character, again, female heroines are all the rage at this time. You have, Terminator 2 came out, what, 92. So Sarah Connor wasn't even that badass yet. She wasn't even there. But Aliens was out. We already saw Ripley, doing her thing. So, I don't know. I guess they could have used Barbara. But I meant, like, Dawn of the Dead.
I don't really dwell on what would have happened so much, unless there was plans for something more that were, like, announced, like, here's what we were gonna do, but it didn't work out, and that's the only time I ever, like, oh man, that would have been cool. But,
Right.
14 years later, we got our Dawn of the Dead remake, and it kicked ass, and, a lot of people seem to not like it so much. Everybody has their opinions on whether zombies should be fast or not. That's whatever. I'm happy with what we got. Zack Snyder's directorial debut.
Yep.
James Gunn writing. Two huge, like, really heavy hitters in the comic book world now tackling a horror movie. That's a little interesting, but we got it. It was cool. We got our Day of the Dead remake in 2008 or 9.
Where a lot of people think Ving Rhames is reprising his role, and I'm like, that's not. But one of the theories I heard, which I loved, was that was his brother he was looking for.
Huh.
And I was like, I totally buy that if you want to say this was a sequel. I totally buy that. I didn't like the zombies jumping on walls, though. That
movie was just garbage through and through. But.
Yeah. But there were, like, 2 Day of the Deads. There was Day of the Dead and, like, Contagion.
Yep, I never saw it. Contagion was a prequel. It took place in the 60s. I know. That's all I know about it.
Then I think I did see that one. All I know is there was some weird... No, if I'm not mistaken, it took place... Like you said, it's a prequel. Took place, and it was in the lab. And at the end of Day of the Dead, when they go into that lab, and they get all eaten and stuff like that, or whatever the case may be. Yeah, that movie was terrible, man. I put myself...
I didn't see that one. I've heard it was bad. I'd like to give it a shot at some point, maybe.
Well, look, do you like the Friday the 13th movies? If I'm not mistaken, Steve Miner wrote and directed. Is it Steve Miner? Is that the dude's name?
Yeah, that's the dude from Friday the 13th.
Yeah, he ran and directed it. I mean, it's there. You could. It has moments, but again, I don't know if it was trying to one-up running zombies, but zombies crawling around, like, on walls and on ceilings, that's just, that was retarded.
To clarify, we're talking about the
Day of the Dead remake.
Yes, we're not talking about Contagion anymore.
Yeah, we're not talking about, I don't remember, I remember seeing Contagion, but I don't really remember much from it, so it must have really been bad. Like Necropolis or some shit. Like one of them Return of the Living Dead sequels that should never have happened.
Yeah. Grave to the Grave.
God. I tried watching that recently, too. Not too long ago. I started watching them, and it was, man, just...
That was my introduction to the Return of the Living Dead series, was through those on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Yep.
When I was, like, in middle school. I'm like, oh, blurred out boobs. Awesome. This is great. I also have a bit of a soft spot for House of the Dead. The House of the Dead 2. I enjoy that movie.
Holy crap, dude! Like, seriously?
Yeah,
Me too,
that
man.
one's cool.
But I like the first House of the Dead. I was like, but the second one really was like, whoa, okay. Yeah, I did like that movie.
I mean, it wasn't a great movie. I watched it pretty recently too, and it's like not a great zombie movie or movie by any means, but it's still pretty fun.
Yeah. No, I gotta watch that again. It's been a while since I watched that.
If I ever come across it, I'll pick it up.
Definitely, I have it. I have it. I don't know where it's at again. Where most, like I said, it's in that box. See, most of the stuff I get now, it's like it's weird because I'll see them on Blu-ray, and I'm like, well, I have it on DVD somewhere. I just gotta find it. But if I come across them on like a bargain bin, for instance, the AVP, I got AVP and the Jeepers Creepers movies. Both of them were like $7 a pop. So, both sets, I should say. So I've got 4 movies, and I paid $14, and I was like, that to me is a steal. I take it. So if I come across those things like that, the Blu-ray bargain bin, they can stay in the box over there, and I'll just pick them up on Blu-ray. That's what it is.
Yeah. Gotta upgrade at some point.
Yeah, exactly. All right, then, final.
I really hated the Day of the Dead remake. Just like there was like, oh, this one's mildly intelligent, and he won't eat people because he's a vegetarian and stuff. And like, fuck that.
Man, that was and that was them trying to do the callback to Bub.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
The Walking Dead did Bub better.
Bud. His name was Bud.
Was it Bud?
In the Day of the Dead remake, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Because I was like, wait a minute, Bud's the Chud. In case you don't know, Chud 2, Bud the Chud, one of my favorite sequels of all time.
And they're just pissing all over the Day of the Dead legacy with that fucking movie.
Oh, they did. And I'll tell you something, Day of the Dead wasn't one of my favorite ones off the bat, man. That grew on me.
Yeah,
it really did.
It grew on me too. I remember very distinctly the first time I watched it. I was in middle school. I know I say that a lot, but that was middle school is when I first got Netflix, when they were still doing DVD deliveries and stuff. So I just put every fucking horror movie like ever made on there, and I would watch anything at that point. I watched a lot of shitty stuff, but I watched a lot of great stuff too. That's where I found a lot of fantastic movies. And one of those movies was Day of the Dead, and it was a summer day, and it was so. I was a pretty hardened horror fan at that point, but something about that movie, like, it was so, like, visceral and gross looking, and the special effects, like, how they were done, I had to watch that movie in increments. Like, I'd watch it for 25 minutes, half an hour, and then I'd have to shut it off for a while, because it was just so much for me. It left a bad taste in my mouth the first couple times I watched it. And then, I don't know, it took me a while, but now I love it. I liked it then, but it was so radically different than Dawn of the Dead, which, at that point was my favorite, and it still is my favorite. But something about it just, like, it made me feel sick, and I think that's a credit to the movie, because it is a good, solid movie, and the more when I watch it now that I'm more grown up, I understand a lot of the themes more and understand where the characters are coming from, but it's still still a pretty gross movie.
Right, I know it is.
But I can't really say that about a ton of movies.
No, it definitely is. I mean, they went there with the gore. They really and it worked because it looks real, man. You had the doctor prodding at the brain. Again, the zombie on the table, his guts fall out.
When Rhodes is getting ripped apart, those were like real pig's intestines and stuff.
Oh man, how about isn't that also the one with his eye? They like grab him by the eye and they start ripping up, and
I think so.
Eyeball pops out. Yeah, it was. See, I was at the age already when I saw that for the first time that I was I loved all that stuff, but I just found the movie slow. I wanted a Dawn of the Dead. Dawn of the Dead for me. That was the pinnacle.
Yeah, because that was almost like a comic book, sort of. It was very fantastical.
Yeah.
And like it was very kind of fantasy based. It was really upbeat, sort of. Except for the ending. The ending was kind of grim, But I think that's probably why it took me a while to get into Day of the Dead 2, because for like 7th, 8th grader, it was a pretty slow movie, and also it was just pretty gross. Like I appreciated it all, and I was enjoying it, but it was like I have to turn this off for a while. I did the same thing with Cabin Fever 2, but that's because that movie is just shitty.
There's only one movie that made me ever feel grossed out, and that was the remake of The Blob.
Really?
Yeah, that movie got me. Like, I was sick in the theater. I was sick. Like, man, my mom was like, "You were turning colors, and you threw up, and you were curled up in a ball on this." Like, I couldn't watch it, and I love The Blob. I love that movie, and I love the remake now as an adult. But even now, as an adult, there are still certain scenes I turned my face from. I ain't lying.
That's fair.
Well, that'll do for the spotlight today. We were supposed to just talk about Night of the Living Dead, but you know what? Zombie movies in general are just fucking awesome. And if you guys don't watch zombie movies, you should go and watch zombie movies, Mo. Don't think it's Walking Dead and that's it. It's not. The reason why Robert Kirkman made Walking Dead was because of Night of the Living Dead. Was because of Dawn of the Dead. Was because of all these great... because of Zombie. And go even crazier. Go look at some of the Japanese zombie movies. Asian zombie movies. Look at Bio Zombie. There's a crazy Japanese movie called Stacy. They're nuts. Junk is another one. One of my personal favorites. Versus. Trust me. One of Kitamura's... I'm not going to say masterpiece, but one of my all-time favorites. It's really good. The zombie genre is not just on AMC, people. It is all over the place.
It really is such a vast pool of different kinds of zombies, different approaches to the zombie movies. We didn't really get into like Fido or anything, but that was
Fido, yeah. We should have we should do a whole spotlight just on zombies instead of just like particular movies.
Yeah. And my personal favorite, I think, all-time favorite zombie movie being Return of the Living Dead. If you haven't seen that, finish this because there's only a few minutes left, and then go find that movie.
Exactly.
Just enjoy it.
Yeah. He's right. I'm going to say the same thing. Go find Return of the Living Dead. If you have never seen that movie, watch that movie. It is damn near flawless. From soundtrack to visuals to story. It's just perfect. Listen, G95, we kick some butt. At least we know what to do when the zombies do come. You gotta get them in the head. G95, it's been a pleasure talking with you once again.
As always.
That's right. I'm G1, ladies and gentlemen. This is the G Show Spotlight. It's been on Night of the Living Dead, the original and remake, and they're coming to get you, Barbara.